Okay, let's take a few more calls at 617-830-4750, starting with our caller from the 705 area code. Who's calling today from 705?
I think that's me.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm calling from Northern Ontario, Canada.
Great.
I was wondering if you could comment on with the pandemic. I've noticed that a lot of, especially more corrupt governments, are taking this time to seize more power than they should. For example, in Poland and especially in Hungary,
Yep.
Viktor Orban was given the power to rule by decree. And I was wondering if you could comment on the state of democracy in the U.S., because I've seen some worrying things with vote by mail and gerrymandering that the Republicans seem to be trying to do.
Absolutely. So here in the United States, we have several layers of totalitarian-ish tendencies from the current federal government. So one of the first red flags was when coronavirus started, the Justice Department was asking for essentially the suspension of habeas corpus in effect, where the Justice Department wanted a situation where if they have people being held pre-trial who normally would have a right to a speedy trial, which means the charges against you are presented, you're given a lawyer, a court date that's relatively expeditious, given a chance to prepare a defense, etc. The Trump Justice Department wants that suspended so that they can just hold people indefinitely and say, listen, you've not been sentenced to prison, but you're not getting bail, and you're just going to sit in prison, and the charges against you aren't moving forward because courts are operating at diminished capacity because of coronavirus. Extremely totalitarian, very, very concerning. We then saw with the protests here in the United States, Donald Trump's first instinct when we have protests against police brutality is to say, governors aren't being brutal enough, I'm going to send in the military in order to be more brutal and to further repress protests. Very, very totalitarian. Donald Trump so far using coronavirus, although I wouldn't be surprised to see him try to use the protests as well to justify we shouldn't vote by mail. Voting by mail leads to fraud. We shouldn't do it. It's just a voter suppression tactic. Trump insists Democrats can only win if they cheat. Well, it's clear he thinks he needs to cheat in order to win or at least suppress the vote. So it's very, very disturbing what we're seeing here. Before all of this started, the United States in the democracy index was ranked a flawed democracy. And the state of democracy here is dramatically declining. Earlier this week in Georgia, we had huge voter suppression in strategically left-leaning and non-white areas. I mean, it's ugly. It's very, very ugly.
Yeah, I think that is really concerning. One thing I was going to ask is, do you think that with, I don't really understand it because, I don't live down there, but from what I understand, it's with vote by mail and stuff like that, that's in the care of the state secretary. Is it the attorney general or is it secretary of state? There's someone down there, an elected official who controls that is, I think, semi-independent of the state legislatures.
Yeah,
so
the Secretary of State, well, it's independent of the legislature, but these are elected positions, I believe, in just about every state, the Secretary of State. And we've had crazy situations where, like in 2018, Brian Kemp was Secretary of State in Georgia, and he was candidate for governor. And lo and behold, his overseeing of his own race for governor led to him becoming governor in Georgia among widespread allegations of voter suppression. Listen, I'm going to have to let you go because your connection is a bit problematic and it's coming in a little bit crunchy, but very, very important issues, and I'm glad you're paying attention to them.